Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching and Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channels. This is Pro Wrestling Logic. That's where you are. But if you're looking for life, business, relationship coaching, please feel free to reach out to my main channel, Golden Opportunities Coaching. In any event, this is the Impact Review for the 8th of April 2021. Not a bad show. Hard for them to be up against the NXT deal tonight, obviously, but it's WrestleMania season. What are you going to do? And certainly they get pretty well cannibalized by this show. I'm sure any wrestling fan is going to choose, or most wrestling fans are going to choose the NXT style versus this program. Anyway, we open with Jazz defeating Susan with Deonna Purrazzo on the BTI. Opening video focuses on the 1000th match of James Storm. And then he defeats Eric Young. And then they also talk about the brawl with Omega and the Good Brothers versus Swan, Mack, and Edwards, setting up the main event for tonight. Rosemary with DK, Jordana Grace, Havoc defeated. Tennille Dashwood with Caleb with a K, Nevaeh, and Alicia. 6 women will be wrestling in a 6-woman weapons match at Hardcore Justice. I think the Hardcore Justice thing is played out at this point. Realistically, ECW ended 20 years ago, probably 21 now. Although technically the last show was in 2001, house show-wise. Pretty sure they did a pay-per-view in 2001 as well, one pay-per-view. Anyway, it's just played out at this point. And the winner of Jazz and Purrazzo at Rebellion last week, Nevaeh, finally turns on Havoc after losing yet another match. Match itself was fine. Bunch of pair up between people. Grace is cut off from her corner. A couple of minutes by Dashwood. I'm not a fan of Dashwood. I've made that clear before. She escapes, tags in Rosemary for the hot tag. Rosemary goes nuts. Alicia gets pinned with the red wedding. Rosemary as the strongest competitor going in, and obviously the fact that she'll be good with weapons. Havoc and Nevaeh brawl with each other during this melee, and both end up going through tables outside. Overkill on the hardcore aspects. Rosemary gets a little excited about the weapons factor, and she almost gets mentally distracted by it, and they add a little bit of fire into the Havoc and Nevaeh feud during this. Havoc also handles Dashwood pretty easily. I don't know. This feels rather lackluster, to be honest. D'Lo Brown and Matt Striker run down the card for Hardcore Justice and tonight's Impact as well. Gia Miller interviews Matt Cardona about Myers rejecting his challenge for a match. And Cardona says he doesn't want to fight him either way. He said he wants to wrestle all the other wrestlers so he could prove himself. He's happy that D'Amore gives him Jake something later tonight, but he won't allow a name to be made at his expense. There's a vignette for Taylor Wilde's return. Okay. So anyway, backstage, Deonna Purrazzo's helping out Susan, who'd been knocked out on the BTI match before the show begins. Su Yung is coming out through this supposed head injury. I don't particularly like head injuries in wrestling anymore, but that's just me. I don't like the whole head injury implication with concussions and all of that, but they do what they do. Anyway, Matt Cardona and Jake Something goes to a no contest. Cardona made a challenge to Brian Myers several weeks back. It hasn't been taken seriously. The match is short. Matches back and forth action. Something controls the early part. Cardona makes a comeback. Cardona goes for the radio silence, which I'm sure should have a different name by now, but it's turned into a powerbomb position, and Cardona shifts his weight Both men go to the floor, and ultimately the finish sees Brian Myers come out and attack both guys. He tries to injure the eye of Cardona. After the Rey Mysterio thing, I'm not a fan of eye angles. Anyway, that's that. Backstage, Triple XL confronts Trey Miguel about their match tonight. Miguel tells them that he wasn't tagging with Callahan, which Triple XL turns it around and tells them he's just making excuses to avoid getting in the ring with them. Backstage, Triple XL confronts the whole thing, and it kind of, I don't know, it fell flat. A lot of the angles in Impact are feeling like they're falling flat. Anyway, promo from Violent by Design. Young talking about the fact that I gotta get my phone. I'll be back in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. And I mean, it is what it is as far as many of these programs. I wouldn't necessarily say that they're good. I wouldn't necessarily say that they're bad. They just are. Impact is kind of filling flat at the moment. Anyway, promo Violent by Design. Young talks about how every war has its battles, but he's not worried about failures. He said he lost to James Storm, but that Deaner failed and he had to make up for it tonight against Sabin. Sami Callihan and Trey Miguel defeat Triple XL, which is, of course, AC Romero and Larry D. Match story is that Callihan requests the tag match. Miguel rejects the offer to be part of the match. Match obviously is worked on lack of teamwork between Miguel and Callihan. Callihan to me is a bygone character. He might have been relevant a few years ago. I don't see how he's relevant now. Callihan wants to wrestle Triple XL by himself. Miguel has managed to hold his own against both men for a little bit before they do the stealing tag spots between them. Tension between Callihan and Miguel grows, and the teamwork doesn't come together. Both men do stereo dives, setting up Miguel for the submission win over Larry D. It's fine, but it just feels clunky, and again, ECW throwback type stuff, which 20 years later really doesn't fly. Post-match, Miguel didn't want to celebrate with Callihan. And then over at Swingers Paradise, James Storms, Chris Harris, and Chris Sabin are playing blackjack. Storm and Sabin have to leave before Sabin gets ready for his match with Deaner. Harris stays at the table and wins some beer money. Haha. Kind of lame. Anyway, Chris Sabin with James Storm defeats Deaner. Violent by Design sends Deaner out to wrestle for himself, as he must prove to them that he still belongs in the group. And Young was taking up the Lost Storm on Deaner. That's the story they tell in commentary. Match has a good, very fast pace to it, and Sabin's offense hits early, and he locks on the three-quarter roll, which ends up forcing Deaner to cheap shot him and cuts him off with some strikes. Deaner focuses on Sabin's neck. Sabin makes a comeback going after the leg, so definite body work here. Finish of the match sees Deaner go for the pin with feet on the ropes. He's caught by Storm, who told the referee. Deaner distracts himself with the referee, allows Sabin to recover, get the win with a cradle shock. Post-match, Young appears on the screen and tells Storm and Sabin that Deaner's success and failure wasn't about the match, but it's about distracting them so that he and Doring could take out Chris Harris. After the video, Rhino gores Storm and Deaner takes out Sabin, forcing them to watch on the screen as Young finishes off Harris. I don't know, convoluted angle. Some people liked it, I didn't, but then I don't like the overly convoluted angles. I like, teams, if you have tag team matches, are 2 guys. And all this overly done stable stuff is getting old across most promotions. Ace Austin and Fulton are approached by Josh Alexander, told them that their match for Rebellion had been signed. Austin versus TJP versus Alexander for the X Division title. TJP walks up to be reminded that Austin pinned him last time, and they're about to fight. Dreamer walks up, and since he has booking power for Hardcore Justice, and tells them to find tag partners for a 3-way tag match. Multi-person matches just to get people on the show is stupid. I wish promotions would knock it off. Backstage, Dreamer confronts Young about what he'd done to Diener and told Young he wasn't getting away with it. In the process, calling him out on his stuff, and since Young was talking a lot of trash, Diener challenged Young to bring his boys 4-on-4 Hardcore Justice match, and Dreamer is obviously your fourth man. Video package for Jazz, talking about her career, from training with a junkyard dog, joining ECW and WWE, and finally coming to Impact. She talked about failing to win the tag titles, but her focus is now on Purrazzo's Knockouts Championship, and that she's focused because her career is on the line. Either she goes home after this, which I think would be a dumb story to have told, or she gets a short championship run and it adds to the lineage of the belt. Anyway, Gia Miller interviews Deanna Purrazzo about the Jazz video. Purrazzo basically makes a few snide shots about how ODB and Jazz wouldn't be Knockouts division, or even couldn't beat her. She said she'd be retiring Jazz and build a brighter future for all of the Knockouts in Impact. Miller tries to ask about Kimberly and Susan interfering in matches. Purrazzo shuts her down with that and saying Hardcore Justice, she'll be there by herself to avoid distractions. Dreamer tells Brian Myers that he's going left and right, ticking people off. Diener tells him that Jake Something asked for a match with him after he interfered in the match, and Dreamer was booking a hardcore blindfold match against him at Hardcore Justice. What a really bad idea. Brown and Stryker run down the updated card for Hardcore Justice, including Shira versus Hernandez in a chairs match. Hardcore pay-per-views, just for hardcore pay-per-view's sake, seem dumb. Anyway, to the main event, the only match that really has long-term impact, or at least seems to. Rich Swann and Kenny Omega are weeks away from their title versus title match at Rebellion. Both these teams brawl in the locker room. Anyway, Don Callis makes the introduction for Kenny Omega. Match starts. Impact's team runs wild, and they take the match out to the arena floor. They hit a bunch of dives on their opponents. Back in the ring, they work on Anderson with a series of double and triple team maneuvers. And then Irake and Anderson cuts off Edwards, takes him to the AEW corner. Edwards makes it out after a few minutes, tags Mac, who gets cut off, hitting a Samoan drop and a moonsault combo on Omega. A couple of minutes later, Mac is also able to escape, tags to Swann. Short square off between Swann and Omega, but Edwards comes back in. Last few minutes, see everybody in, and they hit big moves. Swann tags in again and slowed down so he could get the OWA, but then when he went for the 450 splash, Callis pulls him out of the ring, breaks up the count. Anderson tags in. Edwards hits the Boston Knee Party, and Swann hits the Phoenix Splash for the win. I don't know. I understand why they did this, adding Omega, but at the same time, just get to Omega and Swann, unify the belts for Omega, and be done with it. I don't like, to me, this dragging it out is foolish at this point. Anyway, we'll be back with the NXT Stand and Deliver Night 2 review and more right after this.